Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. Single player RPGs is my preferred genre of games nowadays.
I don't give a damn.
I find it to be the most relaxing and immersive genre of games because I can usually lose myself in these worlds, if the game is good of course. However, ever since I started doing my Hidden Gems of Trash series, I played a bunch of games with the long forgotten split screen co-op mode. So I thought it would be fun to make a video where I talk a little bit about these games, and it might help you out if you're looking for something to play in couch co-op with a friend or your partner. If you already watched all of those videos, you already know about all of the games I'm going to cover here.
Enough, I'm not here for sex.
Anyway, I selected 5 games from worst to best, and the order in which I selected these games is how much I personally enjoyed them, but your mileage may vary. This video is sponsored by Factor. If you're searching for a very convenient way to start eating healthy, well, look no further. Factor delivers ready-made meals right at your doorstep. All of these meals are designed by professional chefs and the menus are updated weekly. You can select your favorite meals, so you can just let Factor to do all the work based on your taste preferences. And if you're into fitness like your boy C4G, Factor meals can help you in a major way. Eating healthy is equally important as working out, but you need way too much free time on your hands for preparing meals by yourself. That's why Factor makes this process very convenient. Each and every meal has a high nutritional quality, and you can even select meals for specific diets like keto, low calorie, vegan, or so on. It's a great way to start avoiding unhealthy fast food, which only hinders your gains. So use my link in the description or go to go.factor75.com and use the code FACTORSC36994 to get 50% discount for your first box. Number 5. Cursed Crusade. I didn't have a lot of positive things to say about this game, unfortunately. It comes from an era when quick time events were really prominent in action adventures. Now, I can tolerate a certain amount of QTEs, but when the game is almost totally based around this god-awful system, I'm going to lose the interest very fast. But we're here to mostly talk about the split-screen co-op mode, which does make this game a little bit more bearable. First of all, this is an action-adventure game that came out in 2011. And in some parts of the world, the game has been delisted on Steam, so not everyone can buy it nowadays. But it also came out on PS3 and Xbox 360 back in the day. Anyway, the Cursed Crusade puts a big emphasis on the storytelling. The story follows a mercenary/Templar called Denz and his friend Esteban Noviembre. Both of them suffer from a demonic curse, and this is one of the main features of the game, not only from the storytelling perspective. You'll be able to enter this demonic mode, which slightly affects the gameplay mechanics. The presentation in this game is pretty decent, even for today's standards, if we exclude the character models, which are obviously very outdated. There are some impressive looking set pieces, especially if you have a 4K monitor or a TV, and running the game on that setting shouldn't be that hard nowadays, even with a mediocre PC. Even though the Cursed Crusade is a storytelling action adventure, the story itself is definitely not the best part of this game.
They rain arrows on us like a pissing cow!
The dialogue is very bad, and the voice acting is mediocre at best. The cutscenes are okay, and like I said, the presentation is decent. As for the gameplay, I would not recommend trying this game out if you're going to play it by yourself. Actually, I'm having a hard time to recommend it even in split-screen co-op mode. You can have some fun in split-screen co-op, but don't expect very engaging combat mechanics. There is some depth to the character progression, I guess, and you can learn some different moves, but it never felt like this actually matters. I played this game in co-op with my girlfriend, and the most fun we got out of it was trying to get a better grade at the end of the mission. The QTEs were annoying, especially in combat. The level design is also plagued by QTEs, and it doesn't even make sense most of the time. But hey, it's a split-screen action adventure, and I played it a couple of months ago. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Oh look, I can actually hit you.
Stop!
Overall, I wouldn't recommend trying this game out unless you and your friend are extremely bored and you want to laugh at Esteban's fake Spanish accent.
You're serious about this Crusada thing, eh? You know, Denz, where I come from, they'd call this a Misión Suicida.
Number 4. The First Templar. Now, this might seem like a worse version of the previous game on the list, but it's actually a lot better. Although the Cursed Crusade has set a very low bar, but still.
Pissing cow!
The First Templar is an action-adventure released in 2011. This game has very simple gameplay mechanics and it was meant to be played in co-op, even though you can play it alone. If you're playing it in single-player mode, you'll get to switch between two different characters. Well, technically you get 3 playable characters in total, but not from the beginning of the game. There are a bunch of puzzles that had to be solved by using both of these characters, so it's a lot more bearable if you're playing it in split-screen mode. The First Templar has a very generic, searching for the Holy Grail story. It's not as heavy on the cutscenes as the Cursed Crusade, and it definitely looks way worse compared to that game. But even so, I don't think the game looks terrible, it's passable if you ask me, especially because of the art style. The color palette is vibrant, and this semi-cartoony art style is always kinda appealing to me. I mean, it's obvious that this game had a very small budget, but the gameplay is not that bad, even though it's on the button mashing side. The controls are snappy and responsive at the expense of some very choppy animations while turning your character. Even though the AI is pretty bad, you will need to use certain moves in combat to break the shield or avoid range attacks. There are some pretty cool finishing animations as well. You'll get some boss fights here and there, and they are definitely more fun in co-op, but they are not very good in general. Most of the time you'll be fighting large groups of enemies. I was actually really impressed with the amount of NPCs that the game manages to put on the screen at once. This is a very linear game with some optional areas here and there, but even your characters will think it's a waste of time.
Was this detour really necessary?
There is some character progression and customization, but it's pretty weak. You will occasionally find new items for your characters, and they're just for the cosmetic purposes, you don't get any additional stats. And to make things even worse, you have to find the full set before you can even change your outfit, it's pretty weird. That being said, I think the game is very fun in co-op. The story is simple to follow and the gameplay is functional. I know that's not saying much, but I would still recommend checking it out in co-op. Number 3. Dungeon Siege 3. Yet another game that I covered in my Hidden Gems or Trash video. But when I first started playing this game, I couldn't get split screen to work on my PC because the game just wouldn't recognize 2 PS5 controllers. In the meantime, I tried it again with Xbox 360 controller emulator and I got it working, so I played the game with my girlfriends. I actually had a lot of fun in single player, so I knew it's going to be even better in split screen. First of all, I'm well aware that the fans of this series had a lot of problems with Dungeon Siege 3 because it had a totally different game design. The first 2 games in this series were almost completely different. But if you don't have problems with that, you can have some fun in Dungeon Siege 3, especially in split screen. This is an isometric action RPG by Obsidian Entertainment, a well-beloved game studio. Dungeon Siege 3 has simple gameplay mechanics with some light RPG elements. There are several playable characters, all with unique abilities, personalities and background story. Speaking of which, this game probably has the best story out of all games that I'm featuring in this video, but that's not saying much. When I reviewed this game in my Hidden Gems or Trash, I said that the story can be a bit confusing and uninteresting. The characters and the dialogue are okay at best, and I can appreciate how the game has some slight variations in the story, depending on which character you play with and what dialogue option you select. Although you're going to meet all of these playable characters in the game. Obsidian definitely came a long way when it comes to writing and dialogue in their games. This game still holds up pretty well when it comes to graphics. It has a vibrant color palette and this fantasy/steampunk art style works really well. The gameplay is flawed, but it's still pretty fun even in the single player mode. Some of the problems I had with this action gameplay is the camera, some badly designed boss fights and the levels. The AI for the followers is ridiculously bad, but you won't have these problems in split-screen co-op. All of these playable characters have a couple of different playstyles, but it's nothing crazy. You get 2 different weapon types for each playable character and 3 active abilities for each weapon type. The itemization in the game is your standard action RPG stuff. You'll get RNG loot with different quality. The items you get really matters though, and you can feel it in combat right away, and I like that a lot. I mean, that's supposed to be a no-brainer for pretty much all action RPGs, but unfortunately it's not. A lot of games can get this wrong. Overall, I found this game to be really fun in co-op, and I would definitely recommend trying it out with your friends. Number 2. Sacred Tree. Sacred Tree had a very similar story to Dungeon Siege 3. It's another sequel that had little to no resemblance to previous games in the series, and of course it made a lot of people mad, including myself. I'm a huge fan of Sacred 2, and I played that game a lot back in the day. Sacred Tree came out in 2014, and it had nothing to do with the previous games in the series. Literally nothing, except the fact that it was an isometric action RPG. Even the RPG is kinda pushing it. I would say it's more of a brawler than anything else. But once again, if you don't care about the games in this series, you can have a lot of fun with this game, especially in split-screen co-op. You get to choose between 6 playable characters, and all of them have a unique playstyle. I was pleasantly surprised with how the combat feels in this game. It's pretty impactful, it has good sound effects, and it's really fun to kill stuff in general. I completed the game in single player first, and then started playing it again with my girlfriend. And as with pretty much all of the games on this list, it's way more fun in co-op. Not just because the split screen co-op is fine by default, but the gameplay is fun by itself. It's not very deep, and it has some very annoying design in certain areas, but if you can tolerate that, you'll have a lot of fun in co-op. Sacred Tree still looks pretty damn good, even after 9 years. The presentation in the game is top-notch, but on the other side, the game is very linear and there is some cheaply designed levels. The linear nature of the game doesn't bother me that much if I'm not dying a lot and having to go through the same set piece over and over again. The cheap level design that I mentioned can also get in the way a lot sometimes. You'll have to turn these damn wheels up to 6 times sometimes while you're getting bombarded with hordes of enemies. Like I said in my Hidden Gems or Trash video, the combat is pretty fun, so it's not a huge issue I guess. But there is another very annoying thing about this game, which might even make you quit entirely. At least that was the case with me. The story and the dialogue are ridiculously bad, and they get in the way a lot. Sacred Tree has a narrator who feels the need to say something stupid for every micro action you do in the game. Or when you don't do something right away, she will start reminding you are crazy. It's very annoying.
That's the wheel that'll free our people. Clear. Now make your way to the wheel that unlocks the cells. Hello, hello, my name is Wheel. I'm getting lonely.
So I suggest turning that dialogue volume completely, and you can have a lot of fun in split-screen co-op with your friends.
The Dark Core itself lies inside the keep.
I'd like to go deep inside your keep. I don't really mean keep.
Number 1. Haunted Demon's Forge.
Oh, there's more here. Fuck. Oh, you died? You're worse than me, bitch.
This is one of the first games that I ever covered in my Hidden Gems or Trash videos. Haunted Demon's Forge is an action-adventure which focuses on co-op play. This game came out in 2011 on Xbox 360, PS3 and PC. Nowadays you can only get it on PC and current-gen consoles, but I only got the split-screen co-op working on my PS5. You can play it on PS5 for free if you have the premium subscription. The game looks pretty damn good on 4K on my PC, but Haunted Demon's Forge never actually had a split-screen mode on PC, it only had online co-op. The split screen was exclusive to consoles. Anyway, this is a very enjoyable and underrated action-adventure. I had a lot of fun playing it myself and in co-op with my girlfriends.
Help!
I can't help you while you constantly run away from me!
But you died.
It's not Counter-Strike, it's not
you
Valorant.
died
It's a
first.
fucking action-adventure!
You died first. Rush Bibi.
The story of Demon's Forge follows Kadok and his sister Elara. Both of them are playable characters of course, and you get to switch between them if you're playing in single player mode. I would even recommend playing this game in single player mode because the gameplay is pretty fun. Kadok is a melee warrior and Elara is a hunter with a bow. Their playstyles complement each other quite well, and some of the abilities have great synergy. For example, you can freeze enemies with a frost arrow from Elara, and a simple melee attack from Kadok will shatter them to pieces. Both of these characters have a couple of different skills to unlock and some very light itemization. I didn't like the itemization a lot, and the fact that weapons can break was kinda annoying. Other than that, the action gameplay was pretty solid. It's more of a hack and slash combat, but it's not a mindless button mash. The positioning is very important, especially for a Lara. This game has a cover system which is very similar to most third-person shooters from this time period, and it works well. You'll constantly fight hordes of enemies and do some light puzzle solving along the way. Speaking of that, I really didn't like this aspect of the game since all the puzzles are kinda mindless. They only serve to hinder your progress for no reason, and it's really lazy game design if you ask me. And it doesn't help that sometimes you have to wait like a moron for the game to react to what you just did. It's very stupid. To be honest, I don't remember anything about the story, except that Kadok was seeing some monsters in his dreams and a hot lady. Overall, I would heavily recommend playing this game in co-op or even in a single player mode. I'm not sure about the Xbox and if it's available on that platform, but it works fine on PS5 in split screen mode. And of course, you can always get it on PC if you want to play it in a single player mode. Technically, you could get the online co-op working on PC with some third-party software if you have the time to set that up.
I'm gonna die. Help. You're doing nothing.
I'm killing the archers. And that will be it for this little list of split-screen action adventures and RPGs. And if you found at least one game that's worth trying out with your friends, I will consider this video to be a success. Split-screen co-op is pretty much dead in modern RPGs and action adventures, especially on PC, but there are some exceptions, I guess. We have Divinity Original Sin series, Outward, Hellpoint and The Last Ori Crew are some newish games on top of my mind, with split-screen co-op. I'll have GOG links for some of these games, and if you want to buy them, you can support the channel by using my links. Speaking of supporting the channel, I just launched my personal store, where you can buy some interesting t-shirts and hoodies. Check out some cool designs in the theme of the channel, like this RPG Zone hoodie or Nameless Hero t-shirt. But you'll find a lot more if you follow the link in the description. I think that's a great way to get something back for supporting the channel. And of course, you can always become a Patreon or a YouTube member and get your name on the end credits of my videos. Many thanks to all of my current supporters, and I'll see you in the next one.